Hey there, it's Thomas. I'll be brief here, as brief as I can. I just wanted to give you a sense of what's going on in the markets. You may be hearing news or looking at your statements and thinking, why are things worth less or what's going on? And so I wanted to be a little proactive here. So what I have here on the screen is the S&P 500 down in the US. I'm using the S&P 500 because it's the top 500 companies in the United States. And literally the US markets will drive the global markets. So today we had a big rally in the US markets, but you can see here that 6 months ago, back in May, we were down at the 2600 level on the S&P 500. We climbed all the way up to the 2900 level at the end of September, and then we've had some pretty big volatility swings here on the far right of the screen. You can see. And then today we had a nice big rally in the markets, and I'll show you the same for the Dow Jones. And I suspect that tomorrow the European markets will likely do some rise as well, and I would expect the Asian markets overnight will feed off of this large gap up, if you will, in the U.S. markets and move forward as well. So this is the S&P 500. You can see we've had some volatility, especially over the last 6 weeks, say. Dow Jones, 6-month period, similar story. You can see that they're fairly well correlated. We've had some more, volatility here on the right of the screen. The Dow Jones today was up 545 points or 2.13%. The S&P 500 was up 58.4 points, 2.12%. So you can see that they're very close. And the TSX here in Canada was up 76 points or 0.5%. And it's similar story in the Canadian market, but not quite as volatile. You can see that we actually had some highs earlier in the summer before we fell off the edge here in again, late October, early November. And back in the summer is when we had probably the peak at that time in the cannabis stocks. And then as the government secured the legalization, we had a little bit of a sell-off in here. But really what drove the markets down was the sentiment in the U.S., the interest rate moves in the U.S. as well, which I'll get to in a moment, and also the Bank of Canada up here raised the short-term interest rate. So that's the TSX. And then here's the 10-year Treasury in the U.S. And again, I use the 10-year Treasury from the U.S. because it is the largest debtor in the world, and really what goes on with the U.S. Debt and the US dollar can give us a pretty good indication of how the rest of the world is faring in terms of their markets. So you can see that the Treasury has also been this is a 10-year interest rate, and it's been pretty volatile in the last 6 months. This is not normal. You can see that we were yielding 2.73% back in April, to where we've reached a peak of 3.23% in October. And that's a really big move for a 10-year Treasury. And maybe what I'll do here is I'll pull up, a 5-year chart. And you can see that, back here, we were at a high of 2.9%. This is in 2013. We had pressure for quite a period of time. And then we took off from this low, this low of interest rates, 1.37% in 2016. And we're almost up a full 200 basis points or 2 percentage points since 2016. So that's just a little over 2 years. So you can see that interest rates are inching up, which is putting stress on the equity markets. And every indication is that we're going to continue to see rates go higher. So I would suspect we're going to continue to see pressure on the equity markets. Now, moving away from that, let's talk about the number one stock today in the U.S., and it was on the NASDAQ, and it's a little known company called Tilray here in Nanaimo, British Columbia. They are a cannabis stock, but they went up 30.6% today, or $32 a share. And the reason is there was a lot of short selling. So when you're short selling, you're looking for the price of the stock to fall. And so if the price of the stock starts to go up, you want to cover your short sale. And in order to do that, you have to buy the stock. Now, don't go out and buy Tilray, because January is when the lockup period comes up. They just went public earlier this year. So the lockup period comes off. So all the insiders, directors, employees, friends, family, all of those people that own shares are then able to sell them into the market. And so I would suspect that in January, we're going to see some downward pressure on Tilray. I guess in closing, if you have any questions or concerns or you want to speak to me directly, there's a link there to book a call with me, or you can send me an email and I'll answer your questions as best I can. And do take a look at your statements. Do start to think about whether you want to rejig your asset mix, because I do suspect we're going to have some more volatility. Or if you're comfortable with the short-term, medium-term volatility, but long-term you feel comfortable that the investments you own are going to be ultimately higher long-term, I would encourage you to at least have a look. And then if questions come up, by all means, reach out. I'd love to answer them for you. And so last thing, in the email is a link to schedule a call with me if you'd like to do that. And I would love to know if this video was good for you, if it helped at all, if it is worth me doing these on a more frequent basis. And if there's any videos you'd like to see or ideas you'd like to see brought to you where I could send out a quick video on some market stuff or investment ideas, then let me know about that and I'd love to do that. All right, thanks.